What is up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 6 of the Bullpen Bulletin here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We got myself, Ricky K. We got Alden K. We got Mike Patt, and it's 2 days away from opening day. The pageantry, freshly cut grass, the hot dogs, the popcorn, and baseball is back. We have some really fun pitching matchups in some of these games. We're going to dive into what are our favorite pitching matchups, what are our favorite opening day series coming up, because they all start to count now. After we talked all that spring training and all of those exhibition games, now all for real. We're going to continue our look at the division. Today it's the NL Central, a very wide open division with some interesting teams, but teams that can go either direction. While Major League Baseball is going to get started, college baseball, college softball are about the halfway point. We're trying to figure out which teams are tournament teams, which teams are going to be top seeds as we get closer to the NCAA tournament in just a couple of months. We'll update on that. And of course, it wouldn't be an opening day preview without World Series predictions that we're sure to stick to and not change our mind about 15 times throughout the year. I don't know about that, but we're going to find out. It's all coming up next here on the Bullpen Bulletin on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We will see you in a couple minutes.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clinking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back. Of course, thank you to our awesome sponsors here on Bullpen, Bulletin, IE Sports Radio, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Jerky that's on a whole other planet. If you need some snacks for opening day, that's going to be the one that you check out. Some awesome stuff there. Looking for some great apparel when you go to the gym, supporting a great cause. Vital Apparel is what you want to go to. Use our code IESR. You get 15% off all that awesome gym wear. Seal the Deal Wax Seals for those awesome weddings and parties and invitations you need. Maybe you're having an opening day party. That would be pretty cool. Of course, great people at IE Sports Radio. Every day we got a show. If you're looking for regions, sports like baseball, we got one for you. Of course, check out our newest sponsor, Raw Nutrition Supplements. Go to getrawnutrition.com. Use promo code IESR and you get 10% off of your purchase. Be sure to follow us on X at BP Bulletin_IESR. Follow me on X at Buccaneer555. You can follow Mike at Let's Wine _IESR. You can follow Alden at VAZTRL. And remember to check out our supporters club. It's $5 a month. If you become a member of our team, and when you join our team, you become a member of our family. And if you're, let's say, a Pittsburgh Pirates fan or a Cincinnati Reds fan, you want to show solely about your favorite team because there's 162 of these games. We're not going to get to every team during the week. You will get that, and you can maybe be a guest with us on the show talking about maybe your favorite team, your favorite player. And it's $5 a month, and we would greatly appreciate the support. So before we get going, we have a couple of comments here as we get set for opening day. I'm excited for it. Everybody's excited for it. We have Glenn Ritter from Bold North Breakdown checking in with us. I'm sure he's happy about getting ready for some Twins. Brian from the Beantown Sports Pound, who was talking some Red Sox. Larry B is in the house. We're not talking Angels this week. That's, I think, next week's show. But baseball is back. And Ralph, of course, will talk about his Pirates. A little bit of a hit today with Jared Jones, but I would think the best case scenario for them as possible. So let's get right into it. Opening day is Thursday. Of course, we've already had opening day in Tokyo, but really opening day is this week. And there's a lot of really fun pitching matchups in store Thursday. I think there's one series that begins Friday. That's Colorado and Tampa. I doubt any of us are picking that as our series to watch this week. But Alden, I'll start with you. What is the pitching matchup you're looking forward to the most on Thursday?
Yeah, so for opening day, I think in a pretty underrated one is Gilbert and Severino for the Athletics and Mariners. I think two teams that could be something in their division this season, a division that we'll eventually get to, but a division that could be up for grabs this season, depending on what other teams did. And I actually have a list in front of me just so I don't forget anything, because there's actually quite a bit here. But Reds and Giants with Hunter Green and Logan Webb. I think Logan Webb coming off of a Cy Young caliber season. I think that, and Hunter Green, a guy who will be the ace for the Reds this season. That's another matchup that I think would be good as well. They did announce that Allen will be the opening day pitcher for the D-backs, but I think the Cubs are throwing Justin Steele out for opening day. So I think that, a left-hander against, a right-hander with two different lineups, especially because the D-backs have a lot of left-handed batters. I think that that will definitely be a critical matchup, and as the Cubs throw a left-handed pitcher at us. But yeah, those are my three. There's a lot of good matchups here. I don't want to talk about all of them. I'll save them for you guys. But the opening day pitching matchups it's always something that I look forward to, and there's definitely a lot of good matchups here that I like.
The A's Mariners is a really sneaky one, because especially it's not in Sacramento, but at least seeing Luis Severino in an A's uniform, I think it's gonna be real interesting to see what he can bring to the table. Mike, what are you watching on Thursday in terms of opening day pitching matchups?
Yeah, I mean, I liked all the ones Alden said. I had half an eye on Severino and Gilbert as well. But to me, the matchup that stood out to me the most when I was looking at it was Tanner Bybee and Cole Reagans, Guardians and Royals, going toe-to-toe right off the bat. These are two teams that we just talked about last week in the AL Central. Two of probably the top three teams who are going to be fighting it out for the division and possibly a playoff spot as well. So we're starting right off the bat, opening series with these two division rivals and two good young pitchers. I know Reagans has been a very popular Cy Young favorite pick in the American League, but Bybee's no slouch either. He's coming off a really good season for the Guardians, and that should be a really good one. I'm also curious. There's one that we probably, like, on the surface does not, scream, oh man, matchup of the weekend, but I'm really curious about Zach Wheeler and Mackenzie Gore for the Phillies and Nationals. Obviously Wheeler, very good pitcher, very consistent, kind of, you could argue the best pitcher in that division. Going up against a young up-and-comer, a guy who showed flashes of ace potential last year in Gore, had some inconsistencies down the stretch, but it'll be really interesting to see the young gun for a young Nationals team. It's actually very representative of the two matching up as a whole. You have this experienced, consistent Philadelphia team in the NL East and this young, up-and-coming, exciting, but also volatile Nats team. And I think that pitching matchup encapsulates the entirety of the matchup beautifully.
Definitely a fun one with your current favorite, the Phillies, against a future favorite in the Nationals. I think that's a good blend of the current versus the future. Two I like, and we're going to go down to South Beach, and it's not because, I want to watch the Marlins. Maybe the one time I want to watch the Marlins, but it's Pittsburgh, Miami. Paul Skeens against Sandy Alcantara. Very strong matchup. You're looking for strikeouts. This could be the one. Alcantara's looked really good this spring. Of course, Paul Skeens getting his first opening day start. Kind of the hopefully first of many opening day starts. But that could be one. If you want a lot of strikeouts, that's going to be the one for you. Dodger Stadium, of course, has, I think, the marquee one. Tarek Skubal for Detroit, the reigning AL Cy Young Award winner, against a former Cy Young Award winner in Blake Snell, who gets the ball for the Dodgers for their USA opener. Skubal, I saw today, is the fourth Cy Young pitcher to face the defending World Series champs in an opening day. MLB Network had the stat. The last one was Jack McDowell in 1994 against the Blue Jays. So there's your fun trivia stat take to the bar with you or wherever you're watching opening day. That's, I think, it'd be fun. It's 7:00 on ESPN. If you're looking for local, and my second one, actually, I'm going to go my third one because I think I'd get an honorable mention here. Braves Padres rematch of last year's NL Wild Card Series. Chris Sale against Michael King. You got Sale, who dominant last season, against a guy in King who could be on the trade market in July, depending on what the Padres do, but he's coming to his own as a starting pitcher over the last couple of years. Not just two entertaining teams. Like I think that's one, a 4:10 Eastern start. You don't have any games before 3, which I think baseball kind of screwed up there. I think you could use a couple 1 o'clocks, even though it is Thursday, but it is what it is. We'll go through the other matchups really quickly that we didn't get to. Brewers, Yankees, Freddie Peralta against Carlos Rodon. Orioles, Blue Jays, Zach Eflin, Jose Barrios. Red Sox, Rangers, another fun one. Garrett Crochet and Nathan Eovaldi. Mets and Astros, Clay Holmes against Framber Valdez. Giants and Reds is Logan Webb against Hunter Green. Angels, White Sox, Yusei Kikuchi and Sean Burke. I don't think anybody had Sean Burke on the card, but he gets to start. Twins, Cardinals, Pablo Lopez.
Bottom of my bingo card.
That was on your bingo card?
That was at the
Sean
very
Burke
bottom. I'm telling you. I promise.
The fact that Sean Burke made a bingo card should be good enough at that point, but I don't know. And then Friday, with Rockies, Rays, Kyle Freeland, and Ryan Pepio. Unfortunately, it's not Shea McClanahan. He got a triceps issue. It doesn't sound that too serious, so that's a good sign, I think, going forward for the Tampa Bay Rays, as they will eventually, that's their Steinbrenner Field opener on Friday, which will be interesting. So as you said, opening day is Thursday, but we've also seen, I think, some great stories of players making teams. I think it's always a fun week for me because you get to see the excitement. Like, I love when there was a video today, I don't know if you guys saw it, of Cam Smith making the Astros and Joe Espada, the manager, making a phone call, and Cam Smith's family just shows up in the locker room. Like, that's really cool. There was one, Christian Campbell. Apparently Alex Cora asked him to name all the Georgia Tech alums and then told him he was going to be on there because he's playing opening day. We usually use spring wrap-ups and stuff like that, but does anybody have anything last week of spring, guys making the team, that you want to talk about?
There was a funny thing, and I couldn't tell if it was a running bit on Orioles Twitter or not about Jackson Holliday making the opening day roster. They kept asking him, and again, I'm not entirely sure if it was a bit where he kept saying, "Oh, the coach hasn't told me that I made the roster yet or not," as if there was really any doubt amongst the organization that Holliday would make the opening roster, especially with Gunnar Henderson going on IL to start the season. But that was the one funny thing from O's Twitter from this past week, was the running joke. And then I guess officially today, they put his name on the locker in the locker room at Camden Yards. So, Jackson Holliday, surprise, surprise, former number 1 overall prospect in baseball, made the opening day roster. But like I said, couldn't tell if it was a running bit or not, but it certainly felt kind of funny.
Yeah, for the Diamondbacks, I mean, it's nothing that we really didn't expect as far as making the team. They did make a move today, though. Shelby Miller, a guy who failed with the D-backs in 2019, is expected to make the team because Montgomery is now on a Tommy John surgery. So he's out for the entire year. So Shelby Miller took his spot, which is something that kind of made me scratch my head because they have young guys in AAA like Gilbert Diaz, a guy who looked pretty good for the short time play last year. Christian Mena, a guy that they traded from the White Sox last season for the short time he was like 2 games, but he looked very serviceable in those games. And Dre Jameson, a guy coming off of a Tommy John surgery the previous year, even though he's a bullpen guy, he looked pretty good in spring training too. So I'm surprised not one of those three made the opening day roster. But uh, Jordan Lawler is still in AAA. The last time we saw him actually play for the Diamondbacks was in 2023, towards the end of the regular season, our World Series year. And I would probably expect him to be called up sometime in September, maybe like when they can actually expand the roster a bit more. And Drew Jones is starting the year in AAA, so his time is coming up very soon as well. So we may have to wait till 26 to watch both of them play a full year in Arizona. But as far as this year, nothing too serious regarding the D-backs, but could definitely see a lot of call-ups as the season goes on.
One interesting storyline, I think, of guys who didn't make it, Evan Carter. Of course, everybody remembers him from the Rangers in that run to the World Series. Had a 419 on OPS in spring, so he doesn't make it. It makes a crowded Rangers roster that will have Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter in the rotation, which should be a lot of fun. But a really cool story, at least from the Yankee side, JC Escara. Now, he is going to be the backup catcher to Austin Wells. But why his story is really cool, he used to play at FIU and then had, at times in the past few years, was a substitute teacher and an Uber driver. And he was able to work his way up from independent ball through the major to the minor league system, and now makes his way onto an opening day roster. Aaron Boone gave him a really cool message in the locker room. There was a video of him calling his mom that he made the team. Escar is going to be something good. The Yankees are carrying 2 lefty catchers, but Escar has done a really good job, I think, behind the plate. Good job swinging the bat, and good for him to earn a spot on this roster to get a chance to play in pinstripes on Thursday. I think it's going to be a fun moment, but it's always good moments. This is the feel good time when guys are making rosters and you're getting these cool videos out there. I think the next time you get that is when guys make all-star teams. Is the next time you see cool videos like this. And it's just good to see hard work pay off for a lot of these guys. And for some, they're still waiting word. Of course, those, you never know what teams will make between now and Thursday to find some gems on the waiver wire that happen. I mean, we've had some late signings. Kyle Gibson to Mike's Orioles is one of those. The Yankees making one with Ryan Yarbrough, who I think is going to be a big help as a swing pitcher, either as a starter, reliever in the bullpen. So teams can still make moves, and I wouldn't be shocked if you're not going to see a major trade, but you'll see some small trades between now and Thursday, just as teams maybe think guys aren't quite ready for the roster, or somebody's out of options. They want to get something for that player. I guess if you want to throw a New York example, to me, it'd be Oswald Peraza as a name to keep an eye on, because they've confirmed other players like Ben Rice and Jason Dominguez, but not Oswald Peraza. So that could be much of nothing. It could be much of something. We shall see. But let's take our first time out. Let's come back, and then we will dive into our latest division, the NL Central. As we said in the open, it's a wide open division for the wrong reasons. Not sure if anybody really tried to claim the Central this year, but should be a lot of fun. We'll talk about that next here on the Bullpen Bulletin and IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We'll be right back after this.
What's up?
Are you a Tar Heel, Blue Devil, Demon Deacon, or maybe even a Gamecock? Do you cheer for the Panthers, the Canes, the Crown? And check out the Carolina Sports Update every week with me, Neil Curtis, to get the latest and greatest on all the sports action in the Carolinas. We'll be talking pro sports, ACC and SEC football, basketball, baseball, and everything in between. We'll even talk a little Formula One racing now and again. So, for the best hour of Carolina sports coverage, catch me each week on Carolina Sports Update with Neil Curtis, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Cleveland and Columbus sports fans, I've got the show for you. I'm Jen B, host of the Show of the Land right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. You want football? I've got the Browns, the Buckeyes, the Eagles, the Purple Raiders, and more for you. You want basketball? I've got the Cavs and the Charge for you. You want hockey? I've got the Blue Jackets and the Monsters for you. You want football, aka soccer? I've got the Crew and the Crunch for you. You want volleyball? I'm going to unleash the fury for you. You want more Cleveland and Columbus sports? I've got them all for you, from the majors to the minors to the college rinks. Catch me, Jen B, every week on the Show of the Land right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sport.
Of course, welcome back to the Bullpen Bulletin here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Of course, we're going to get set to talk at the NL Central. Got a couple comments throughout. Ralph talking about hopefully Paul Skeens goes from Rookie of the Year to Cy Young in year 2. We'll see what he does there. And Clay Holmes was intriguing. I know the Mets are trying to push Kodai Senga back a little bit, get on that 6-man rotation. David Peterson and Kodai Senga throwing in against the Marlins next week rather than this series. So I think they like the pitching matchups with McGill and Canning against the Astros, which that should be an interesting test if the back end of the Met rotation can take a series in Houston. So we'll see what happens there. But let's get into the NL Central, our 5th of 6 divisions. Next week, I believe we're going to wrap up with the AL West, and then finally we've covered every team at least at some point this offseason. As I said, the NL Central is one of those divisions that is up in the air. I think there are a couple of favorites which we'll get into, but I don't think – I think if anything happened in this division, it would not be surprising to anybody. So we're going to start, of course, with Ralph's Pittsburgh Pirates. So, Mike, what are your thoughts on Pittsburgh with this young team? Of course, we talked about the Jared Jones issue a little while ago.
Yep. The Jared Jones issue, that's going to be a big one. The main reason why I voluntarily picked the Pirates here was because of Paul Skeens, but also because, I was looking at their roster, I was looking at their construction, and, this is a team that reminds me a lot of Detroit last year, a young, stud pitcher leading the team and a couple of interesting offensive pieces, but what else do they bring to the table? You look at who they added in the offseason. They made a couple of moves to add some bats. They went out and traded for Spencer Horwitz, but unfortunately, he will be starting the season hurt. I don't think he's going to be out too long, but he will be starting the season banged up, so that might put them behind the 8 ball. Obviously, Jared Jones will be hurt for what looks like he won't be throwing, I think I read, for 6 weeks. So that's not even his timeline to return. That's just his timeline to start throwing pitches again. So, they're going to be out without him for a little bit, which is concerning because aside from Jones, you look at the rest of the rotation and it's some decent guys. You've got Mitch Keller, who's been with the team for a while, kind of your solid, number 3/number 4 pitcher. Same with Bailey Falter, Andrew Heaney, who they brought in as a free agent, all kind of mid to back end guys. But I don't have a ton of confidence in anybody else currently on the team with Jones out to step up and be that number 2 supporting guy to Paul Skeens. So the concern then becomes, again, kind of similar to Detroit, which we have to remember for the first half of the season, or even the first 2/3 of the season, Detroit was kind of in the middle of the pack there. It wasn't until after they sold at the deadline that they actually got on a hot streak, which confused the heck out of everybody in baseball, and they came back. So the question becomes, what happens out of every 5 games? You have Paul Skeens pitching 1. What happens in the other 4? Their bullpen has some decent pieces, but they're relying heavily on a David Bednar comeback year. The closer did not have a great season last year, actually had 7 blown saves, a career high. He had a career high in blown saves and a career low in total saves. So they're relying on a comeback from him and then relying on some of these other bats to heat up. Cabrian Hayes, the third baseman, very good defensive third baseman, arguably the best in baseball by most metrics, but the bat just has not been there consistently. Then you look at a guy like, Isaiah Kinner-Falefa, who has bounced around the league a little bit. Will his bat be enough to help the team? Joey Bart, the catcher, will his bat take the next step forward? I think they have a really good hitter in Brian Reynolds. I think they have another good developing one in O'Neal Cruz, who they just keep moving around the field to find where they want to keep him defensively. I'm concerned that they're relying on 39-year-old Andrew McCutchen to be a reliable bat in that. And I'm concerned that they're relying on Tommy Pham, who is now on his 8th team in 4 seasons. So overall, yes, this team has arguably the most exciting young player in baseball in Paul Skeens, and then a couple other good pieces. But is there enough? Are the parts enough to form a good enough sum? That is my concern with this team. Is there enough beyond Paul Skeens to make this team a contender?
Yeah, the one thing I'd be concerned with the Pirates is, look, as you said, get this pitching staff some offense. I mean, one thing that Ben Cherington is not really invested in this offense. This is a big year for Derek Shell. They've got to find a way to actually, I wouldn't say making the playoffs, but at least get this team closer to 500. But that's going to be an interesting thing with how quick Jones comes back when you throw Mitch Keller into the mix. We'll see what's going on. As Ralph points out, David Bednar, not the guaranteed closer. He's kind of gone through a little bit of some struggles over the past year, and he's been a guy that's been consistent before last year going in. So just something to monitor there with the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think that's a team that really needs to be put under more of a microscope coming up this year. We're going to turn now to the Cincinnati Reds, and I think their big moves was the manager, as Alden's going to talk about, bringing in Terry Francona. Of course, for a young team, everyone loves Ellie De La Cruz. So, Alden, what do we think of the Reds for this upcoming season?
Yeah, I think that the Reds they were kind of like under the radar this year. I think that they had a better offseason than people really talk about. They, like you said, they added a manager who was a World Series champion, a guy who almost got Cleveland, the then Indians, to their first World Series in decades. So they have a manager who can build a team. They have a guy who's coming in, used to the Ohio area, coaching in Cleveland. So I think that was a really good hire for Cleveland. I also do like that they they did trade Jonathan India to the Royals, but they did get Brady Singer, a guy who kind of lost his role in Kansas City, as I think Ricky talked about that last week. So he has a chance to revive his career in Cincinnati. And not to mention, they did acquire Gavin Lux, a guy who kind of had obviously a not well heard of, but a pretty decent resurgence here with the Dodgers last season. There was one point where I think he had the highest batting average for like a few weeks after the All-Star break. So they added some pop to the plate, and also bringing back some other guys. They did lose some guys off the waivers, so I do think that the Reds are a team who, obviously playing in the Central, this division could be up for grabs for anybody. I think that the Reds are underdogs for their division. I think that, a lot of people, especially compared to the other teams in the division that uh, didn't have the best offseason, obviously, like I say plenty of times, if you can have a manager that's a proven winner, then and have the capability of doing what they can do with what they're given, and of course, Ellie De La Cruz, a guy who is trending and improving every single year, a guy who can lead that team. So for the Reds, I think that I don't think people should really count them out. I know last season was kind of disappointing after they had almost the playoff year the following year before that, but I think that the Reds could really shock a lot of people this season. Not saying that they're going to win their division or anything like that, but I think that with the manager that they got, they traded for a couple guys that can improve their pitching. I think that the Reds can really fight for that division this season.
Yeah, I think again the question's going to be this pitching. I mean, I'm a big fan of Hunter Green, big fan of a guy like Nick Lodolo. He continue to make those progressions. Look, Terry Francona is going to get to make the most out of a young core. That's a big thing when you look at Cincinnati. Is can they take that next step? Because that's the reason why David Bell was let go. Let's take a look at the Cardinals, and this is the team that I wish they picked a lane. The problem with St. Louis is you heard all talk about Nolan Arenado this winter. Was talking he was going to get traded. He turns down the trade at the Astros, and now he's stuck being the opening day third baseman. Who knows what happens with him over the course of this summer? You have a team that really could have traded a Ryan Helsley, could have traded a Sonny Gray, could have traded an Eric Fetty, and they really did not do much of anything. So with that being the case, they need their young guys to step up. Guys like Jordan Walker, Mason Wynn. Mason Wynn's a really fun player to watch. He's got a lot of speed. Nolan Gorman, Lars Nootbaar, Alec Burleson, like Brendan Donovan's another one. Like they need somebody to find something because there's people there in St. Louis. It's a really good baseball town, but in a division where, hey, the Cardinals could have took advantage in a seller's market to actually, if they're going to retool, actually retool, especially with Chaim Bloom eventually going to take over that front office. Now that was going to be the time. So the fact that they really just stood there and did next to nothing, that's a concern because, again, you can't fool people in that town. It's kind of like New York and Boston, all these places. You can't fool people. And they'll come and watch, but again, it's really just about can this young group, these young players, can they get that next emerging star? I'm not saying you got to go get Albert Pujols, but can somebody at least step up and take over the mantle, being the face? Because right now, I'm trying to find a face of St. Louis baseball, and there isn't really one. And I think that's a problem for the sport. So just something to monitor there when it comes to the St. Louis Cardinals, just trying to find any answers going forward as to what they are. So as we usually do, we look at the other two teams in our roundtable discussion. And we're going to start at Wrigley Field with the Chicago Cubs. They're already 0-2. Now, about that, but they've got a little bit of a tough schedule, as all they would know, playing the Diamondbacks coming up this weekend. They got San Diego next week in their home opener. So Alden, when you look at the Cubs, I mean, they brought in Kyle Tucker. This is a team that is looking to win, especially in year two of Craig Counsell. What are your thoughts on the Cubs this year?
Yeah, I think the Cubs, even though they did start 0-2, I still think that they're going to finish at least top two in the Central. That's where I have them. The offseason that they had bringing in Kyle Tucker, they did look better, replacing him with Tucker. They did bring in Presley from the Astros, which I do have concerns about the Cubs bullpen. And we did see it a little bit in that Japan series, where as soon as Yamamoto went out, everything broke loose. It's like, oh wow, the Dodgers score 3 runs, and that's that in the first game. Second game, yeah, we saw Justin Steele kind of look rusty in that game. Bullpen didn't do any better, so I am concerned about the bullpen for the Cubs, and I'm pretty sure our Chi-Town Weekly host Adam Karnick may have mentioned this before, but apparently Seiya Suzuki is on the trade block for the Cubs, or maybe he just something like that. So I think bringing in a DH for the Cubs come the trade deadline is something that we might see in the future. But regarding the beginning of this season, I think we're going to see a lot more from them in this Cubs and Diamondbacks series, especially, two NL teams that are playoff contenders. I think we're going to see a lot out of the Cubs. They do have a starting pitcher rotation where I do think they can keep it sustainable for the regular season. But of course, they announced their fifth man in the rotation is Ben Brown, which is a guy that I think we've seen in the bullpen a lot. So, the Cubs, as the season starts, I think that they may start off a little bit rusty, but my prediction for the Cubs, I think come trade deadline, they'll get involved a lot more, and then that's when they'll make a push for the division. But as of right now, I do like the offseason that they had. The benefit of playing in the Central Division that is up for grabs. I could see a lot of good things for the Cubs this season. So, offseason that they had, but now it's all about them just getting it done, especially with the bullpen. Like I said, that's my biggest concern for the Cubs this season.
Yeah, I was watching, Mike, before I get to you, the game against the Braves that they played with Atlanta being out in Arizona because they're on the West Coast. And that bullpen, Ryan Brazier got lit up like a Christmas tree by Olsen, Ozuna, and Ozzy Albies. The bridge to Ryan Presley, to me, is a really big concern. As decent as their top 4 starters are, I wonder if the bullpen in this division is going to be their downfall.
Yeah, I think that's definitely when you look at the Cubs top to bottom, that's their number one concern. And I think it's by far, I don't think it's even close. Like, even, their lineup, with Suzuki, if they do decide to deal him, they still have a really solid lineup. They could easily insert someone like Justin Turner into the DH spot and at least have a competent bat there that they can put in their lineup. Obviously, they add Kyle Tucker. Nico Horner has developed into a really good hitter. They still have Dansby Swanson and Ian Happ, 2 veteran bats who will continue to help and support this lineup, and a really good starting pitching group. I mean, this is a team that you look at the different individual parts, and you just hope that they can overcome these small, like, little weaknesses here. Like, well, actually, I guess I shouldn't say the bullpen's a little weakness. I would say that's a pretty big weakness. But you hope they can overcome that one major hump, because if they can do that, if they can figure out the pen leading up to Presley, they have a very realistic shot at this division, a division that doesn't have another team that I would say is perfect top to bottom. So, I mean, having a weakness in this particular case, it's not their downfall, because you're not exactly looking at a group of opponents that are perfect in themselves. But like I said, I really like the addition of Kyle Tucker. I think their lineup, top to bottom, I hope, I don't know what's specifically is going on with Suzuki, why they have him on the trade block per se, but if they keep him in the lineup, it's good. I mean, he's a guy who's had over an 800 OPS each of the last 2 seasons. That's definitely a bat you want to keep in that lineup. But I like the Cubs. I think Alden's right. They're definitely top 2 in the division. It's just if they get over that one hurdle to get them to first place.
Yeah, I think this is a real interesting lineup. I think Dansby Swanson's going to be one to watch. Can he kind of keep going and find more success at the plate this year? And Larry, I think, is on point. The Cubs, to me, are a weird team this season just because I don't really know what to make of them necessarily. And he's right that they are going to miss the Dodgers, at least, are going to miss Justin Turner. I like Justin Turner there. We've talked about that in recent weeks about Matt Shaw taking over. So we're going to see what ends up happening with that. But this is still a really exciting team. Craig Counsell, though, in year 2, you give him that amount of money, you better win, especially in this division. Speaking of the guys who usually win this division, and it's Craig Counsell's former team, the Milwaukee Brewers, this is a team that did lose Willy Adames. they did lose their closer, Devin Williams, to the Yankees, but Mike, it's hard to really doubt what Pat Murphy and that Brewers front office seems to do because they always seem to find ways to get something out of nothing there.
Milwaukee Brewers feel like they've become the Pittsburgh Steelers of the MLB. No matter what happens to their team in their offseason, they just find a way to keep being competitive. And you look at them, and like I said, every team in this division has some form of weakness. But if you want to pick out a team that's probably as close to complete kind of across the board, it's probably going to be the Brewers. I mean, their bullpen, they've got some decent options there. Their offense can be a little bit hit or miss at times, particularly, Reese Hoskins kind of has that reputation of, some nights he'll pop off, but then he'll go on slumps. And, they've got some young pieces, Joey Ortiz, Bryce Terang, Jackson Churio, guys who are young and a little bit streaky. Their pitching rotation, I was concerned with when I saw that Brandon Woodruff was injured, but it looks like he's at least throwing pen sessions now. So hopefully they can get him up to speed. He won't miss too much time because that's going to be key. Without him in that rotation, it's going to take them down a notch, in my opinion. So the sooner he gets back there, the better. But overall, I mean, like I said, the Brewers, top to bottom, you look at this roster, it's probably one of the more well-rounded, if not the most well-rounded in the division. And like they just keep, with that next man up philosophy. Okay, we lost Willy Adames. All right, well, Joey Ortiz can play shortstop. Let's move him over to shortstop and keep the ball rolling.
Alden, what are your thoughts on Milwaukee this season? I know we talked before the show. You weren't as high on them this year.
Yeah, but I mean, then again, I said that last year, and when they lost Craig Counsell, I said the exact same thing, and I have to give Pat Murphy a lot of credit. He did last year. He did what he as best as he could with what he had as a first-year manager. But yeah, I do like the comparison that Mike made. Yeah, they're like the Steelers of the MLB. They do enough in the regular season, and then come playoff time, it's like, what the heck? They forgot how to play baseball. So it's like this offseason, it's despite not making a big move. Yeah, they are probably the more complete team regarding pitchers, though. I mean, yeah, Woodruff, if he does come back soon, and that's a plus, along with Freddie Peralta. They did bring in Nestor Cortez, a guy who I'm sure Yankee fans aren't missing anymore, but I don't know. We'll see what Brewers fans can get out of him. And they traded away Devin Williams, so it's like, who's going to be that guy that steps up and closes you games? The Brewers were in quite a few close games last year. So now that your star closer is gone, who's going to be the guy that takes over and starts delivering? We'll see what happens with their bullpen as well. But overall, I mean, Milwaukee, they've been the team that, playing in a weak division, they're the ones that have been the ones to do it. And, making the playoffs with that team, I was surprised last year. But, they were a Pete Alonso inning away from playing the Dodgers in the second round. So this is a team where, okay, they didn't make a huge significant move regarding players in the offseason or anything like that, but they have proven that they can get there. It's just all about delivering in the playoffs with this team. But like a bunch of people we know have said, yeah, someone has to win the Central, and in recent years, and maybe even this year, it's proven that it's going to be Milwaukee. So while I'm not fully sold on Milwaukee, like I did say earlier, despite my opinion on that, they are the team that tends to get it done in that division. So I got to give Pat Murphy a lot of credit with what he did last year. Now this season, they did lose a couple guys. They also brought in a couple guys as well. So, like I said, Milwaukee and Chicago, it's pretty much those two teams. So I'd say that both of those teams have a lot to prove this season.
I enjoy watching this young core develop between Jackson Churio, who was fantastic last year, Garrett Mitchell, Sal Frelick. I mean, if Milwaukee wants to keep this core consistent, those are the guys who are going to build around. Cortez, I think, is going to be good for them. I like the Quintana signing they made to the back of the rotation, and they usually just fill guys in the bullpen. Trevor McGill usually does a good job back there. They kind of rotate dudes around anyway, so the bullpen, I think, is going to be okay. And like we said, they find diamonds in the rough, it seems, that are everywhere to keep them competitive. So let's look at what we got in this division. Let's go 5-1. Mike, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the Central?
Yeah, this is I think you guys will agree with me. This might be the toughest one so far that we've ranked, and probably will end up being the toughest one. I'm gonna put the Cardinals at 5. There's an old adage in sports that I hear people, they say the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And I think, it's talking about, okay, this team doesn't have a ton of great players, but when they all come together, it creates a great team. For some reason right now, I'm feeling the Cardinals are the opposite. They have some really good high-end talent, but I don't see where it's coming together. Like you said, Ricky, who's the face of baseball in St. Louis? Who's the uniting force? I don't see it. Now, I actually think this team is actually going to start off okay, but I think what's going to happen is they're just going to be a little bit too far out at the deadline, and that's finally going to force them to sell at the deadline, sell guys like Ryan Helsley, like Nolan Arenado, and that's when they kind of tail off and end up at the bottom. I don't think it's going to be by much. I think this division's going to mirror last year a lot, where there isn't that much variance between these teams, but I do have the Cardinals in 5th. I've got Pittsburgh as 4th. Where's the offense going to come from? Last year, they were 23rd in OPS. They were 27th in runs scored. They were bottom 5 in total strikeouts. They struck out a ton. Where's the offense coming from? And then to Ralph's point earlier, he's like, okay, he said that Bednar is not necessarily going to be the closer, but if Bednar's not the closer, then who's it going to be? Who's going to be that guy to finish off these games? Is there another guy who's going to be markedly better than Bednar at the end of the bullpen? I gotta see what they have other than Skeens before I can give this team a vote of confidence. So I have Pittsburgh at 4. I'm gonna put Cincinnati at 3 there. I think Alden's right. I think this team is a dark horse in the division. I think they will be competitive. I think they're probably the most exciting team with guys like Ellie De La Cruz, with Hunter Green, and some of the other pieces they have there. So I think there are things to like about Cincinnati. I think it might just be like maybe 1 year too soon for them. I think they're going to keep growing together. They do get Matt McLain back in the infield to go with Ellie De La Cruz. That'll be a big help to them, but I think they're just not quite there yet. And then top 2, this is a tough one. You're kind of going with old reliable versus the team with I would say with the more upside. And I'm gonna throw a wrench out there. I'm gonna put Milwaukee 2, Chicago 1. I know that's a little bit of a strange one, but like Larry said, they're a weird team, and a weird team could very easily win this division. Milwaukee's got that young core, but I think continuing to replace your top players eventually starts to catch up with you just a little bit in minor ways. And I think the Cubs, if the bullpen is that big of an issue, I do think they'll be willing to go out there and find the pieces they need at the deadline. There's almost always somebody selling bullpen help that you can go and make a deal with. So I'm going to go with Milwaukee 2, and I think it's going to be a close race. Like I said, especially if Woodruff can come back. But then I think the Cubs, I like the moves they made in the offseason. I hope they don't deal Suzuki. I'm kind of banking on that one. And then that rotation is really good as well. So I'm going to go Cubs, Brewers, Reds, Pirates, Cardinals.
Alden, what you got?
Yeah, this division is the toughest one to predict, but for the wrong reasons. Not because teams are good or that good. It's because, teams can either be good enough or poorly terrible. But it's my prediction was actually going to be the same as Mike's. I have St. Louis finishing last. It's like every time I hear a Cardinal story, the biggest headline is, where is Arenado going? Where is Helsley going? Who's gonna step up for St. Louis? It's like, where are the moves to improve your team at? And I think that come the trade deadline, that's when Arenado, who I still think is going to get traded to a contender like probably the Yankees or something like that, but he'll probably be gone by the deadline. Helsley, a guy who the Diamondbacks tried getting earlier in the offseason. If they still have closing issues by the deadline, maybe they go after him as well. So all I hear from St. Louis Cardinals news is just sellers, sellers, sellers. So it's like, and there's nobody that can really, that I know of, that can really step up there and be a leader. So I think St. Louis should hit the rebuild button if they haven't already, and I'm going to put them at 5. And then Pittsburgh at 4. Yeah, like Mike said, you have Paul Skeens, but Paul Skeens isn't scoring you runs on offense. He can hold down the fort for every game he's pitching, but who's gonna, number one, like Ralph brought up Bender, who's gonna close games for you? Is it gonna be Holderman, a guy who had a 3.50 ERA last season? So I think that the Pirates are gonna start off bad this season. I think that they will somewhat get involved in the trade deadline, though. And I think that maybe they would go on some kind of win streak here and there, but I think by then it's going to be too late. And I say, yeah, let's give the Pirates maybe a year or two to, maybe have a chance to win that division. For now, I'm going to keep them at 4. And like I got Cincinnati at 3. I just think that with the manager that they have now in Francona, a guy who can win games, and the young team that they have with pitching that has improved this year, and with De La Cruz and McLean back there, I think that the Reds, I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but I do think that they'll be competitive with certain teams, and kind of similar to what I've said about the Nationals. I think that they can be competitive with contenders and send a message to people like, hey, we may not be there yet, but we are going to be there pretty soon, so get ready for us. I think that's going to be the same type of team that we see in the Cincinnati Reds this season. And I got Milwaukee finishing second. Yeah, this team has won the division in the past for so long, but I just can't put them at number 1 this year because of the moves that the Cubs made. I think the Cubs made moves that they actually needed to make. And I think that the Cubs may start off slow to start off the season. They are, 0-2 right now, and they have a pretty tough schedule to start the season. So I do think that the Cubs may start off a little bit slow this year, but I think that they're going to be buyers in the trade deadline. And I think that's when they make their push to win the division. So I think the Cubs will be one of those teams that use the trade deadline to really build their team and make a push for the division win. And then Milwaukee, it's just, I do like that. I do like the players that are up and coming on their team, but for me, it's about their pitching and their bullpen, like everything regarding their pitchers. They do have a way to find talent with their own system, their own farm development, and find the guy that can take over for guys that they get rid of. But as far as March 25th, 2025, I'm going to say Cubs and finally get over the hump of Milwaukee. And I got the same division prediction as Mike does. So.
All right. So for the sake of not being the same as both of you, I'm going to go slightly different. I'm going to go St. Louis at 5. That stays the same. We talked about that already. We're going to go with the Reds at 4. The reason we go with the Reds at 4 is they just never stay healthy. Like, you look at the Reds, the problem is their pitching just never stays healthy. Right now, Brett Lauder's hurt. Andrew Abbott's hurt. We got to see Hunter Green stay healthy. Nick Lodolo stay healthy. Right now, Alexis Diaz is beginning the year with a strained hamstring, so they're down their closer, essentially. And it's just really not trusting this group to actually stay healthy, so I'll go 4. I'll go Pittsburgh 3. I know they don't have the hitting, but you've got the pitching. We didn't even talk earlier about a guy like Bubba Chandler who could come up. That's another young phenom they got. Who knows, maybe like a guy like Anthony Solomoto who's in Double-A. Like, they've got pitching, and if they could hang around and make some kind of deal in July to at least maybe be competitive, that could probably get them to 3rd just through the way that they can play. So I'll put them 3rd. I'll put the Cubs 2nd. I think the bullpen to me is just too much of an issue. And I think with this group, it's going to be, hey, the emergence of a Pete Crow Armstrong in the outfield. He's had a really good spring. Can he keep that going to go with Happ and Suzuki and Swanson? Tucker's going to do his thing in a walk year. But I just think they're going to lose a lot of leads. And that rotation, I mean, Jamison Tyon's got to continue to be that consistent guy at the back of the rotation. I'm going to go Milwaukee 1 just because it's no reason to disregard the Brewers until they lose. I mean, that's really what it comes down to is, like, yes, Milwaukee has lost the last 2 years in the wild card round as a home team, but I think you look at this group, they just know how to win divisions. And then you can take the manager away, you can take the GM away, and I think that core plus a healthy Christian Yelich, I think will help. I think sometimes we forget that Christian Yelich is on the Brewers still, and that he still could be a factor. I mean, right now he's 33, but he's a good vet in that team. William Contreras is one of the better catchers in the league. I mean, Bryce Terang's only 25. Joey Ortiz is only 26. I mean, they've got a good young group of players that just know how to win. So I'll take them for now, just to be slightly different from you guys, just so we're not boring our listeners with the same prediction. But we're going to do more predictions a little bit later. But first, we'll take a quick timeout. We will then dive into a little college baseball and college softball, some interesting developments tonight as well as during this week. So we'll talk about all those things up next. You're listening to the Bullpen Bulletin on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all those sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No, not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. But let me be your guide through your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on the defining moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
The roar of the crowd, the drama and pageantry, the adrenaline rush and decadence of the world of professional wrestling. Join yours truly, the SoCal Saint, for the best pro wrestling podcast going today, the IE Wrestling Show, exclusively on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Join us every Wednesday from 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Once again, every Wednesday, the IE Wrestling Show. It's just too woo!
And welcome back to the Bullpen Bulletin on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. To move from the big leagues to the NCAAs. And of course, we're halfway through the season, which is crazy to think about as we're getting closer to conference tournaments and regionals and all that fun stuff. Of course, we'll start with NCAA baseball. Some exciting scores going on tonight because we always have that Tuesday midweek action. Florida State with a walk-off grand slam in the bottom of the ninth to beat Florida 8-4. Tennessee rolls over Queens College. Coastal Carolina with a nice upset over number 6 Clemson, 8-2. Louisville got upset by Cincinnati, 12-2. So a lot going on around the diamond in college baseball. And, of course, good one going on right now in SEC Plus. North Carolina and South Carolina, 8-8 in the top of the 8th. So if you're looking for something to watch in your streaming service, good matchup with the Carolinas there. So Alden, I'll bring it to you first. What is your what are you going to update on us on this week in the world of college baseball?
Yeah, so I wanted to bring up a series that kind of surprised me a little bit. So the Texas Longhorns recently beat LSU in a 3-game series. They lost the first game, and then they closed out the last two. Both of them they scored, or one of them they scored double-digit runs in to beat LSU. So I thought that was a series that really sent out the message that Texas can really climb up the rankings here pretty soon. And I looked at the rest of their schedule. That was the last ranked team that they were playing this year. So if they can keep climbing the rankings, beat the teams that they're supposed to, I think that Texas can really make a case for this season. I think that beating LSU was definitely a statement, and ever since then, beating LSU in that series, they skyrocketed the rankings a little bit too. So I think that Texas really a good important series win over LSU, a team that is always good year in and year out. And also to add on to then some, Alabama and Tennessee was also a pretty good series as well. Tennessee ended up winning it, but all three of those games were pretty high scoring. Some of the pitchers in the last game actually looked pretty good in that as well. So all around NCAA baseball, we have so many great games right now. But I wanted to point out both of those two series that I thought were pretty entertaining. So Texas upset at LSU, which definitely makes me look at Texas a little bit more regarding the rest of the season. And even though Alabama lost the series to Tennessee, I think Alabama is a team that could start climbing it on the rankings if they can obviously just get it done against the ranked teams. But a lot of great NCAA baseball so far.
Yeah, Justin LeBron's gonna be a name you want to watch for Alabama doing his thing. Had I think a big hit one of the games against Tennessee. It was like a bases clearing hit, so keep an eye on him. Mike, you want to move it over to your region and talk about a team that isn't exactly living up to preseason expectations.
Yeah, I'm actually normally in this segment we hype up a team, we give a team a good shout out, but I'm actually gonna flip the script a little bit and go opposite and kind of just voice my disappointment in University of Virginia baseball. This is a program that started off the season number 2 in the country. They had a rough start. They seemed like they were trying to make a comeback, but now they have lost 5 in a row here. They got swept by Duke this past weekend and even lost a game to the Richmond Spiders. Yes, Richmond, Virginia. The Richmond Spiders, a team who I've been talking about for basketball for the past couple of months for their college basketball teams, particularly their women's team that made the NCAA tournament. But Virginia losing to Richmond Spiders, and then the Liberty Flames, a team, the school that many people might know from football, as their football team does surprisingly well year in and year out. But Virginia, just this top program, just absolutely struggling, down to 12-11 on the season, 5-game losing streak, and only 6-6 at home. Normally, teams like this are pretty dominant on their home turf, but that has just not been the case. It has been a rough year for Virginia baseball. Maybe they can turn it around in the second half here, but they're going to need some really, really big improvements here. And I mean, at minimum, just get out of the losing streak. Let's start there, and then we'll keep rolling.
Well, as Larry pointed out, it's really tough to beat Richmond when Spiders have 8 limbs. So that's going to be one where you have a tough time usually beating those kind of teams. But it's been a rough one for Virginia, rough one for a lot of teams in the SEC too. Florida, A&M, Mississippi State, Missouri, Mississippi State. A lot of these teams that are usually good in the SEC not doing so well. Different direction slightly, but first I want to shout out a Division III school, Pacific Lutheran. Right when we got off of the show last week, upset Washington. So a D3 school beat a Division 1A school in baseball. I don't know how the heck that happens, but props to Pacific Lutheran for getting that done. A great accomplishment for that team. But I'm going to go to the West Coast. I'm going to go to Cal. Now, Cal, we're not really used to thinking about with baseball. Used to thinking about more with football, but especially with the big game, Cal against Stanford. Cal played Stanford this week and swept the Cardinal, of course, with Rentaro Sasaki. It was the first time Cal had swept Stanford since 1992, and the first time Cal had swept Stanford at Stanford in the history of the program. So that's a heck of a win for the Golden Bears, who look like a team competing in the ACC. Jacob French, he's a sophomore. He's hitting 351 on the season. He went 10 for 13. And keep an eye on a good pitcher, Austin Turkington. He in the 3 starts in the ACC against Duke, Virginia, and Stanford, he has gone at least 6 2/3 innings in each start and has 23 strikeouts to just 6 walks. So this is a pitcher really showing up against some of the tougher lineups in the ACC. We'll see what he does against a team like North Carolina, but so far a really good start for Cal, and to get that momentous of a series sweep, it should be something to be very proud of. So, Mike, I'll come back to you for some softball, and of course, we've had some interesting softball updates over the last couple of days. We had Pins, the pitcher from Tennessee. She threw the fastest pitch in softball history, 78 miles an hour last night against Arkansas. We're a Monday night SEC game, which is pretty cool. But what are your thoughts going on with softball this week?
Well, I am going super duper far away to talk about my softball team from my baseball team. No, I'm not. I'm sticking in the state of Virginia with the Virginia Cavaliers softball team, who, unlike the baseball team, is actually on a bit of a hot streak. They have won 8 of their last 9, including a 2 out of 3 from Cal and a sweep of Boston College about a week and a half ago. So this team is hot. They're up to 24-8 on the season. They're getting a ton of really good contributions from their whole lineup. They have multiple players. They've got 6 regulars with batting averages above 300. Several players with OPSs above 1.00. So getting a lot of well-balanced hitting, good power from the team as a whole. The pitching has been decent. They have a team ERA of 2.76. That's certainly not anything to turn your nose up at, but this is a very good Virginia softball team. They continue to slowly rise up the rankings, and they have a really big matchup coming up here, not this upcoming weekend, but the following weekend. They get matched up against a interconference rival in Florida State. That's going to be a really good series to watch, I think.
Virginia playing well. ACC's got a lot of ranked teams. When you look at Virginia, Stanford, Virginia Tech, North Carolina is not that far off at 25-8. So the ACC's not quite the SEC, but getting up there. Alden, what about you? What do you got for softball this week?
Yep, so I'll take it down south, and I'll go with LSU. So, obviously the start. So, staying ranked 3rd in softball right now, they've won 14 games of their last 15, and they were on a 14-game win streak. They recently lost their last game to Georgia, who was ranked 13th. So, I really wanted to point out LSU. Because their upcoming schedule, they played a lot of ranked teams lately, and I think this is a big test for LSU, and I think that it's definitely an interesting and entertaining part of the schedule to watch. They did sweep Kentucky, who was ranked 23rd, and in every single one of those games, their pitchers look good. And in that 14-game streak that they had, they pitched 6 shutouts, so almost half of their win streak. So their pitchers continue to impress, and they recently beat Georgia 2 out of 3 in a 3-game series, and Georgia's ranked 13th. And the last game that they lost, that was their first game where they gave up double-digit runs. So they did lose their last game. And upcoming, they have South Carolina, who is ranked 10th. So I thought that was an interesting series to bring up. But overall, LSU, despite the tough schedule, they continue to win big series against opponents that are ranked, and their pitchers continue to look good. But definitely a series that I would recommend at least looking at would be LSU and South Carolina coming up on Friday.
Yeah, the SEC is just a different animal. They're ranked 1 through 5 right now, and Oklahoma did finally take a loss this week. There was I don't know if it's a matter of time they're that good, but give the SEC, somebody finally knocked them off in a game, and Texas now moves up to number 1 because of it. I'm going to go to the Big Ten, and I'm going to go to Ohio State, another school known for football. But Ohio State had a really good series against Michigan State. They outscored the Spartans 48-6 in a 3-game series. This is a team that's 25-6-1. There is a tie there well, now they're 26-6-1. They beat Purdue Fort Wayne tonight, 11-6. Morgan Fry, she had a really good series, 7 for 8 with a couple of home runs. She reached base in 12 of 13 plate appearances. This is an Ohio State team that can hit the long ball. They've got 3 players, Jasmine Burns, Reagan Milliken, and Hadley Parisian, that each have 11 home runs this year. So Ohio State is a team that can crush the ball. You look at the Big Ten, it's not exactly a great conference, but you got Oregon, you got UCLA. There's some better softball programs in it, but Ohio State is probably not one that goes in the tip of your tongue a little bit. So keep an eye on the Lady Buckeyes this year, especially with the way they can crush the baseball with their power. So it's about that time. We have talked about it throughout the spring, and now we have to somewhat put it at least to video. I don't know how much we'll bring it up, but nevertheless, it is World Series predictions. What's going to happen 6 months from now? I think we both have all made that verbal agreement. We're not sticking your predictions to you this year. You can change whatever you want, but we'll go with it. Alden, I'll start with you. Who you got in the World Series this year?
Yeah, even though this might change in the future, I feel like I might one day find myself rewatching the stream and just laughing at myself for this prediction. I actually don't think, I'm just going to start off by saying, I don't think the Dodgers are actually going to be in the World Series this year. I do think, I can't really pick someone to go back there and win it until it actually happens again. We haven't seen it since the Yankees in their dynasty in 99. So until it happens again, I'm not going to pick a team to repeat or go back there again. So I'll start off with my AL team, I guess, and we're going to talk about their division next episode, but call me crazy. I have the Texas Rangers going back to the World Series this season. I think that, obviously my team going up against Bruce Bochy a lot when he was in San Francisco. Everyone knows that after winning the World Series, he would have a hangover year, and then all of a sudden he would have another good year. So, and I think with Kumar Rocker getting a lot more MLB experience this season, they got Jock Peterson, Jake Berger, and of course with Adolis Garcia, the power that they have at the bat. They got DeGrom coming back for a full year. I think that this team is complete, and I think that they're going to really dominate the AL this season. I have the Rangers going back to the World Series. For my NL team, this is tougher than the AL. And I do want to say Diamondbacks, but they got to at least they got to get back to the postseason first in order for me to pick them. But I'm going to pick the Atlanta Braves. I think that with as long as they can stay healthy, and depending on how Acuna responds from his ACL injury, and I think that with the pitchers, they did lose Max Fried, of course, but with pitchers that they have potential that can step up, and with their proven manager and everything like that, they do play in a tough division, so they are going to be up against some pretty big competition this season. But I think as long as they can stay healthy, do it before, if they can stay healthy, and if Snicker can really make the right decisions and manage the ball come playoff time, I think that this Braves team can get back to the World Series. And I think Rangers and Braves, I think that's what I have as of right now. That would be a very interesting World Series. But of course, I think for both of these teams, to be honest, it just depends on health. Both of these teams were banged up last year, but we're talking fully healthy. And of course, if it comes down to health and decision making, that this prediction will change. But I do like what I see from both of these teams, and I'm going to go with Rangers and Braves. I think that's what I could see happening in the Fall Classic.
We would call that the Mark Teixeira World Series for the Immaculate Grid people out there, but that's a fun matchup. Mike, what you got?
So, kind of a little bit along the same line as Alden's thinking, I wanted to come up with a prediction that if it somehow managed to happen, I wanted to look back on this March 25th, 2025 episode and say, holy cow, I can't believe I called that. So I agree with Alden. I don't think the Dodgers come out of the National League this year. I think the expectations are just too high. I think, the team that is often the preseason favorite oftentimes doesn't end up making the World Series for whatever reason. Call it jinxing, call it everybody giving them their 110%. So if I'm not going with the Dodgers, I got to go with a team in the National League, a team that has had recent postseason success, a team that has the starting pitching to get it done, a team that has experienced bats that have actually performed well in those high pressure situations. And to me, there are a couple of teams that could probably fit that billing, but one of the better teams that I think works there that we recently talked about is the Philadelphia Phillies. I think this is a team that has had recent postseason success. They have a ton of great bats in that lineup. Yes, they're streaky. Yes, they might not, perform super consistently in the regular season, but these guys show up in the postseason pretty consistently. They've made deep runs in the last few years, and I really like that pitching staff. Even if you consolidate it down to 4, even if one guy comes out, they have arms to kind of support it. And I just think if I'm not going to pick the Dodgers, I need to pick a team that I could be confident that could match up with and beat the Dodgers in a 7-game series. And that's a short list of teams in the National League, but I think the Phillies are one. So I'm going to go with the Phillies in the National League. And then along those same lines, I don't think the Yankees make it back just because, again, high expectations. Their best postseason bat from this past season is no longer there in Juan Soto. And everybody's going to be gunning for this team. And I got to go with a team that I think could beat them in a 7-game series, a team that has a good recent record against the Yankees. And is there a ton of foundational logic in this pick? No. I think most people would consider them a super dark horse to make a good postseason run at this point, given their recent lack of postseason success. But I'm going to go with a surprise here, and I'm going to hella jinx my own team, but I'm going to go with the Baltimore Orioles. And it's all based off of the prospect of they have 3 pitchers who are injured right now who are projected to come back either midway through the season or maybe after the All-Star break, maybe in September. If those three guys being Grayson Rodriguez, Kyle Bradish, and Tyler Wells, if those 3 guys can come back fully healthy and fully ready to go, it'll be a massive second half boost. And this team could go on a run because they've actually gone on a run with those 3 in the pitching staff before. So if they can get those guys back healthy, the lineup takes another step forward. Jackson Holliday has looked really good. I'm really excited about him. Guys like Colton Cowser, Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westberg, a lot of these young bats, Adley Rutschman, they all come together, they get excited, they get on a run, they get hot. This is a team I could see making that deep run. So I know I just completely jinxed my own team, but I'm going with Orioles, Phillies, because like I said, I want a prediction that if I get it right, I want to look back and go, holy cow, I can't believe I called it.
I'm kind of worried that none of us are picking the Dodgers, which means the Dodgers are going to go to the World Series, but I'm with Alden. I'm going to go with the Braves in the National League. I think getting Strider back, getting Acuna back, and you go into a postseason with Strider, Sale, Wellenbach, Lopez. I think that lineup is pretty good. My only concerns is the bullpen behind Iglesias, but I think that Lopez will make a move, and I think this is a team that we kind of forget about. They had so many injuries last year, and yet still made the playoffs. Now you add Austin Riley healthy in the second half. Matt Olson's still good. Albies is healthy. Michael Harris is good. I'm going to go with Atlanta. I like what Snicker does for this team. The AL was very tough. You could make a case for a bunch of these teams. I'm not going to pick the Yankees just because I think they'll make the playoffs, and I do think they'll still win the division. But I just think without Garrett Cole, it's going to be tough for them to get through a postseason. I kind of liked Alden, Texas. I'm not going to make that pick. I really want to go Cleveland, but they got some crazy stuff with infield, so we're gonna go really out of left field. Kansas City. I'm gonna go with the Royals. I think you look at this Royals team when I look at a postseason to have Cole Reagans, to have Seth Lugo is a 1-2 punch. You look at a lineup that hopefully Pasquantino is healthy. He's starting off with a hamstring issue. You got Bobby Witt, and I think having Urseg for a full year in that bullpen. You have Carlos Estevez, who they brought over from the Phillies. The Royals usually have one of those systems where they can make a deal, not a big money deal, but they'll find a way to make a small deal in some way, shape, or form. I think people forget also last year they beat the Orioles in the wild card round, and even though they lost to the Yankees, they were in every single one of those games. I don't think this time they're going to be afraid to go up to a New York or to a Baltimore or to a Houston or a Texas and find a way to get through those series. So I'm going to say Atlanta, Kansas City, but I'm going to go with Atlanta. I think the Braves are just too good. And to me, I think they get their second World Series in the last 4 years, which you talk about the Astros as a dynasty, as a potential dynasty. Atlanta wouldn't be that far if they were to capture the World Series this year. So last but not least, we go quickly around the diamond. We kind of did. I have one. I don't know if the guys have one, but I wanted to shout out another Major League Baseball player real quickly. Ryan Johnson from the Angels. Now, why is that name not familiar? Well, Ryan Johnson was the player the Angels took last year as the compensation pick for Shohei Ohtani, 74th pick. Well, Ryan Johnson's pro debut is going to be in the big leagues. And it's not often you see a guy go straight from the draft to the pros, but Ryan Johnson is going to be on the Angels roster. So congratulations to him. And even though it's not Shohei Ohtani, and it's not, you're never going to get great compensation back. Props to Ryan Johnson, his family, great accomplishment for the Angels. Any of you guys get anything before we wrap up?
I actually do have one, and it was something that I just happened to come across on X prior to us going live, and I had to I've been like periodically like kind of checking in on it. So the Minnesota Twins, the owners of the Minnesota Twins, the Pohlad family, recently came out. This is actually a report as of late yesterday saying that they're reportedly seeking to sell the team for $1.7 billion. Now, the team was recently valued at as a reasonable purchase price of $1.5 billion. And why are they seeking that little bit of extra money? Some people think that it's based off of actually Forbes estimates the club's value at $1.46 billion. A lot of people think it's based off of the fact that the Orioles just recently sold for $1.725 billion. So they think that they are aiming for that number. But the other report that came out was that the Pohlad family is apparently $425 million in debt. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't think that I would want that information out there if I'm an owner of a baseball franchise, that I have that much debt. This article, particularly here, does not specify where that debt comes from, but that's going to put them in an interesting position with that out there, because it almost makes the attempted sale feel like it's out of desperation, that they're looking to get out of this debt. And anybody who knows a good business deal knows that the desperate party oftentimes ends up having to come down because people know you're desperate. So that's a really interesting situation I've seen. I'm curious to see how that develops. I would be amazed if somebody went 200 million over market value for a franchise like the Twins. Not to say that this is a bad team or a bad franchise, but they're not exactly one of the more storied franchises in baseball. So I'm curious to see how that develops, and if a sale gets done or some type of restructuring of that debt to resolve that issue. But I thought that was an interesting story to see, another potential team sale here in the early part of 2025.
Alden, you got anything for this week?
Yeah, so over in Seattle, they extended Cal Raleigh for 6 years, $105 million. I thought that was a good team-friendly deal, $17 million a year for the catcher. I think that everyone in Seattle likes this guy. Hopefully Seattle actually makes a move here and there, maybe at the trade deadline, that can actually improve their team a little bit, because this offseason, I think Seattle really fumbled it a lot this season. So, but they did extend one of their most important players, so that was a good sign. Shows that they're willing to keep guys that they need to actually try and make a push, because I think that the AL West, the division is going to be a lot more competitive than it was last year. So Seattle, if they want to have any chances at winning that division this season, not only along with this extension, they should really be involved in the trade deadline, because I think this offseason they were losers, I would say. So it was good for Seattle fans that they're showing signs of life and wanting to actually win by keeping Rayleigh. So that was a good extension for them. The D-backs, they signed left-hander Jalen Beeks earlier today. So they finally added a left-hander in their bullpen. That's obviously because they replaced Monty, who's out for the year now. But I tend to talk about that a lot more on my other show. And the Angels, I'm sorry, Larry, but the Angels, they Tim Anderson did make the roster. So obviously something that I think was kind of funny, but we'll see how he does at shortstop for the Angels this season. And yeah, the Jared Jones news, I think that to close it out, we did talk about this a little bit earlier, but the Jared Jones injury, I think that Pirates fans, it could have been worse, honestly. He doesn't need surgery. He is going to be out for a while to start the year, but I think honestly the injury could have been a lot worse. So I think that if anything, it's not as bad as it could have been, but obviously still a bad loss for Pittsburgh. But other than that, I mean, spring training is almost over. 2 more days, and I finally get to see the actual real team in Arizona. So I'm excited for opening day and excited for regular season baseball to be back.
Yeah, I'm still partially ticked at Alden's team for starting Corbin Burns at Yankee Stadium instead of actually pitching him in his home ballpark. I mean, come on, we need to debut our new star. What is this? Against Will Warren and whatnot, but it is
really
what it is. That's what you got going on. But hey, this is a fantastic show. Larry B and Taryn, thank you so much for the compliments on the show. We've been doing it over the last 6 weeks, and we're glad that next week we'll actually get to talk about on-field product, talk about games that count, argue about managers making dumb bullpen decisions, guys coming out in the 5th inning of games. We'll maybe have some age-old debates that we haven't gotten to have in a while about baseball. When to bunt, when not to bunt, who knows? We'll learn more about it as baseball fans throughout the year, so be sure to check that out. Again, we're in full swing. It's going to be fun. I think we maybe made the Dodgers angry that people didn't actually pick them, but it is what it is. That's what we do here on the show. Enjoy your opening day festivities wherever you watch opening day. To me, it's an unofficial holiday on the sports calendar. Find a way to watch a game, any kind of game. Be sure to follow us on X. I'm sure we'll be tweeting about our team, but also about the games in general. And it's going to be a fun slate. We'll be trying to come more notes throughout the year about some of these teams and have some fun along the way. And again, we're not going to get to every team every week, so be sure to join our supporters club. If you want a show about the Sacramento A's, we can make that happen. If you want a show about insert player here, Luis Castillo, maybe the former Marlins infielder Luis Castillo, we can do that. Just join the supporters club, $5 a month, and have some fun along the way. And of course, college baseball's in full swing as we're getting halfway through the year. College softball are halfway through the year. A lot of the ranked versus ranked matchups. I think ESPN has Tennessee and Oklahoma in softball this weekend. That's going to be a mammoth matchup as well. And then next week, we wrap up our look at the division of the AL West. Alden picked one to go to the World Series in Texas. You've got Seattle disappointing. The Angels are what they are. Houston always good. The A's? A little bit intrigued on the A's. I'm not going to pick them to go to the playoffs, but I'm a little bit intrigued by the A's a little bit this year in that new ballpark. Be sure to check out all the great shows here on IE Sports Radio. Thanks to our awesome sponsors, Plant Jerky, Brisket Beef Jerky, Vital Apparel, Seal the Deal, Wax Seal, and Raw Nutrition. Thanks to Larry B, of course, running the show here at IE Sports Radio. So Mike, for Alden, for all of us here at the IE Sports Radio team, I'm Mr. K saying enjoy the rest of your week. And we'll see you back here next week. Enjoy opening day, everybody.